Hi everybody, my name is David Thompson. I just wanted to put a short video together about XR apps for business use. I'm part of several groups in Facebook and on WhatsApp. One of them is called XR for Work, where I think this initial request came from. XR for Work is really about how can applications, the technology be used to enhance work kind of use cases. So meetings, creativity, team building, there's a whole bunch of things. I'm also part of something called the Zero Event Group. That's a group which more or less started around the time of the pandemic and the lockdowns, looking at how this kind of technology can be used to essentially replace physical face-to-face events. And nowadays, of course, as a kind of augmentation to physical events. So my background is in 3D CAD. I'm a shipbuilder by trade, but I've been working in XR since 2017, developing applications, most recently product manager at Gravity Sketch, which didn't work out for me, which is why I've got time to make videos like this just now. So I'm not trying to be a YouTube star. I don't edit these videos. It's just about getting this information out to you. So XR apps for business use. I've created this kind of table here, which gives you broad categories. First of all, I'm looking primarily at apps from the Meta or the Oculus store. There are other applications on the HTC and Vive stores and other places, and this is not comprehensive, but it should act as a pretty good basis to tell people what's out there and how you could use these apps in a business environment. So the way I've categorized them at the moment from left to right is applications which are primarily focused on the team building or having fun together with groups. So these are not single use, they're multiplayer applications. So I've got Remio and Rec Room, and I'll give you a little talk through of these ones. There's then some applications which can be used to create things, so creating geometry, painting things. And of course that can be used in a business environment in order to communicate, of course, to show people something, to talk about an idea. And of course, most of these applications, well, all of these applications do that in full three-dimensional digital space, which is unique in itself, and all multiplayer as well. And then there's a slightly larger, more traditional category of events around, of applications, around having events, so online events, having meetings and workshops. So there's quite a lot of applications there, and this is where, of course, a lot of the industry is pushing this in terms of productivity. And then there's some more what I would call traditional productivity applications. So we've got Node in here, so a mind mapping app. And we've got a couple of applications which are really about bringing your workspace into this kind of immersive digital space that today primarily a VR headset will give you. Some of these applications did work on augmented reality devices like HoloLens before, but pretty much everybody's realized the technology is only really mature for mass adoption, at least with these kind of purely VR devices, or maybe moving into what we call mixed reality. There is a crossover. Some of these applications fall into other categories like Horizons and Workrooms, could be pure productivity, but we'll get into that as we go on. So what I've done is I've just put these videos together here. I'm going to run them in the background and talk about these applications as far as I know them. So I haven't looked at Remio for a long time, but Remio, as far as I understand, they took something like Rec Room, which is a pure fun application that's used by a lot of kids. It's got a very large number of users, and they took these concepts and they just packaged it in a way that was more appropriate for businesses, specifically team building. So I haven't tried this for a long time, but as you can see here, in the next video you'll see that it looks very like Rec Room, and I've heard it's really, really good. Everybody's going on about this, and some of the guys that I work with in the Zero Event Group actually work for Remio just now, so that's saying a lot. So basically think about Rec Room, but with some tools that make it more appropriate for a business environment. So great for team building, great for all this kind of serendipitous kind of meeting or informal networking that's really important in the business environment. I've just worked remotely for the last 5 months for Gravity Sketch, and I really would have appreciated having more just fun get-togethers where you can do an activity like paintball or archery, but talk about work at the same time. And that's the primary target of Remio as far as I know. The Zero Event Group, I think, is going to have a look at Remio again, so watch out for those videos. But a very good tool, and yeah, sorry I haven't tried it for a while, guys, but we'll get back to that. So again, the other, I guess, the sort of inspiration for for Remio is Rec Room. So Rec Room is a kind of a social network application, fun mini game application that's been out for quite a long time now. I think it's one of the few unicorns in the XR industry. It works really well on an iPad, on a high-powered Android device, on a PC without a VR headset, and of course on a Quest or a PC VR headset. So you can see here, very colorful, cartoony graphics, and that's a benefit in it. Most of those environments that you see there are built with a pen in the environment. It's got super powerful creativity tools. I'm not too sure if Remio is focused on that. I think it's more focused on just the games. But Rec Room, it can be used for business purposes. So you can create private clubhouses where you can create an invitation list per email, invite people to those things. You can go into private experiences. And I think the difference to Remio is it's not going to have some of the business tools that you might need, like Rec Room does have whiteboarding, funnily enough. So it's probably worth going into a deep dive between Rec Room and Remio at some point. But Rec Room, super powerful platform, super accessible. You may not want to use it in a business environment because you can go into public rooms, which is probably where Remio is more focused at, giving you a private server, securing your data, that kind of stuff. But if you just want to have fun and go and do a bit of paintball, Rec Room is free. You can just jump into, buy some headsets, even just have people on iPads. Very, very well put together package, and it's just kind of going from strength to strength. So just as a reminder, that was Remio and Rec Room kind of team building and fun apps. So let's look at creative apps. So there's a whole bunch of these. Multi-Brush is something that originally was Tilt Brush by Google. As you can see here, it's simply a three-dimensional painting application. However, it went open source. It was then taken over by this company, Rendeavor, I think it is. And it's something you buy now. It's got multiplayer, which is the key thing. So you can go into Multi-Brush and you can simply have a conversation. You can sketch. You can basically paint things in the air. And of course, that's just got a multitude of uses in a business environment. For basic communication of concepts and ideas. So if you're working in a more creative industry, then something like this could be used just to go in and brainstorm, look at things, and as you can see here, you can draw in a very intuitive way. You just grab your controller, pick a paintbrush, and you start drawing away. So Gravity Sketch, yeah, I wouldn't be complete without talking about Gravity Sketch. So Gravity Sketch is where I worked the last 5 months. Gravity Sketch is a little bit more in-depth creativity tool. So its background really is coming from the simple idea of humans using the 2D sketch to communicate a multitude of things. And pretty much from 4-year-old children upwards, any human being can communicate using the sketch. But as you can see here, Gravity Sketch turns that 2D paradigm into a 3D paradigm. So it's freehand sketching, as you can see here. But there are powerful tools that will help turn your sketch into something a little bit more precise and something which can be used. There's subdivision modeling, which is a super, super powerful modeling tool. And as you can see here, car designers, footwear designers, industrial designers, furniture designers, even Netflix are using this tool in order to communicate. So again, in the context of business use, I think in fact, Gravity Sketch is probably the most widely used XR tool in the sort of productivity business area, bar none. So lots of people using this for designing shoes, designing cars, designing furniture, all these kind of things. So just look up their Instagram if you want to understand a bit more about it. It's fully multi-user. You can even access those sessions via a PC or a Mac on a 2D device these days. Super powerful tool. And again, in the business context, the core of it is that it gives you tools to communicate things. So you might want to communicate the stage layout for an event that you're planning. You might want to communicate how you want somebody to install a pipe in your house in some kind of situation. So just think of it as an absolute sort of raw creation tool and a communication tool, and that's its kind of main use in the business context. If we go back again, we've got here Archeo. So Archeo, again, it's about creating geometry. As you can see here, very much focused on architecture. I think this is an early startup. It's super, super interesting tool. I've used it myself to model my house and model some changes I want to make to it. And they're kind of changing, they're pivoting what they're doing from being sort of sketching on top of an existing, if you like, CAD model to being a native creation tool. But as you can see here, super useful tools. If it's anything to do with buildings, houses, architecture, planning, it's a 3D modeling tool, it's a communications tool, and it's a collaboration tool. And I think, of course, in the business context, you can use that to talk about office layouts. You can use that to talk about planning of events. You can use it to design a new, innovation area in your office. And you don't need to be an architect to use it. It's very easy to use. It takes a little bit of training, of course, like all of these things. But the big difference is with Gravity Sketch as well. Unlike a CAD tool, which might take you weeks to learn, you can probably jump into this, and after a few hours, you can be using it effectively as a communication tool. So that's Archeo. And then we've got Shapes XR in here. Shapes XR is really interesting. Shapes XR is I would say, probably the most general sort of 3D tool in here. The background of the application is that it's designed primarily to help you design spatial experiences. So if you think about Figma, it's a tool that helps designers design websites, 2D experiences, 2D applications. And as you can see here, Shapes XR is primarily targeted at designing spatial experiences. So experiences for augmented reality glasses, for VR glasses, or it can just be used to show how a 2D application can be used, but in the 3D context. So it could be an application which does scanning, for example. Super, super general set of tools that you get in here. So you can create objects, you can sketch walls, you can create, you've got a whole catalog of things to kit bash things in. So just drag, as you can see, drag things and create a scene. Fully supports multi-users, you can see here. And it's got a very powerful pass-through capability as well, where you can kind of go into augmented reality modes. So in this creativity category, a lot of very broad use cases for all of these tools. Actually, they kind of cross over a lot of these creativity tools. Just worth noting, in pretty much all of them, I think you can bring in a LiDAR scan that you've made with an iPhone, so a scan of a room. So you can scan your house, bring it in, and use that as a context of your communication. Or you can bring in a 3D model from something like Sketchfab or any kind of library online. And as you can see here, Shapes XR is a bit unique. It allows you to create a sequence of different events, and then it allows you to export that to Unity, the game engine. So loads of tools there if you're willing to learn, spend a little bit more time and do creative things. Multibrush, very much just something for, or Multibrush and Gravity Sketch for people who don't really want to learn anything, just want to go in and sketch something and communicate. Very powerful in itself. So the next category is events, meetings and workshops, and there's a whole bunch of tools here that have really evolved over the years. Some of these have been really around since the Quest device at least has been around, and some of them are quite new. So I'll go through these again. So Engage is an application. It's been around for a while. It's evolved a lot. As you can see, it started off being squarely targeted at the education space. So basically, it gives you a large variety of environments to work in. So you can see their Mars, you can see their museum-like environment. It gives you, I would say, more realistic-looking avatars. You can actually take a picture of your face and scan it in. They've improved this avatar technology a lot. You can see whiteboarding here, sticky notes. It's got a lot of tools to help you give lectures like this, so you can bring in things in the background. It's got something called IFX, so interactive special effects. You can see here, very, very effective to put in smoke, weather, explosions, these kind of things. It's a very general tool. It can be used in all sorts of education scenarios. And it's got some very unique capabilities. So it's got 3D spatial recording. So you can record what all of the avatars are doing and saying as a 3D scene. And you can play that back to yourself. It's got the ability to add these special effects. So you've got a catalog of animations and effects, and not many applications have that. It might be unique in that. And yeah, you can, if you pay, I think, for the more enterprise tier, you can actually bring in your own environments and your own catalog of parts. Super, super powerful tool. We use it in the XR Crowd and Zero Event groups for our fireside talks. Very, very useful in the business context. And you can use it for running small kind of workshops. You can use it for running larger events where it's one-to-many kind of communication. You can use it for one-to-one meetings if you wanted. It's just got loads and loads of use cases. So like I said, whiteboards are in there, sticky notes, you can bring in videos, you can bring in 360 content, you can bring in 3D models, you've got loads of environments. It's a very, very powerful tool. So that is one of the key things you might want to be using for events, meetings, and workshops. So Horizons Workrooms, I don't know why this video shows a little bit smaller here, is of course from Meta. This is their play to try and replace kind of Zoom meetings, I would say. It's very innovative. It's got loads of tech built into it that the Quest devices have. So you can see there it's using the Meta avatars. It supports hand tracking. It's primarily a base to... I wouldn't say it's primarily a place to sketch. It's to have kind of small meetings. So you come in, you pretty much always have this meeting room kind of environment. There are about 3 or 4 environments you can use and variants of it. It does support fully bringing in your laptop or your computer in there. So it's a little bit complicated, but you have to set up basically a remote connection to your computer, but you can then see your computer screen and other people can, so you can screen share from your PC into your mobile VR headset to do presentations, to do work. And what else is unique? Yeah, it will allow you to see your keyboard through pass-through, or if you've got one of a few models of keyboards that's possible to track, you can actually see your keyboard and it'll be tracked in the virtual space. So loads of potential. I've used it for a few meetings. I think it's quite a good productivity tool, but again, it's got some sort of teething problems, but very innovative, very powerful, loads of good technology in there. So that's Horizons Workrooms from Meta. Glue. So a Glue, again, is coming from this kind of productivity, meetings and events background. It's, for me, the best application in this category. I've used it in the Zero Events category. We always say we end up going to this one to have our kind of meeting summaries. It's got very good spatial audio. It's got very nice environments, as you can see, very functional environments. It's made in Finland, very practical guys up there. And they've got kind of 2 use cases. So you can use Glue as your kind of workshops and meetings application, or you can do custom training applications on the Glue engine. They've got this pretty powerful, platform set up behind the scenes where they can import your own environments and you can create bespoke training applications. It's got a nice, easy to use user interface, very good spatial audio. As you can see here, you can bring in your files as kind of a Dropbox file storage on the background. And at least in the beginning, they were very proud of their enterprise security. So they took a little bit more care, or they focused on some of the back end stuff to make sure that they've got a secure background. You can see there, like all of these tools in this category, you've got whiteboarding, sticky notes, a lot of tools to basically help you manage a group of people. So to move people around. I think it's quite unique in the design of some of the spaces, because you've got, as you can see here, you've got spaces really designed for workshops and then large group presentations. And you'll have colored areas, as you can see here, where I think they're audio separated. So the idea is you say, okay, pink team, go off to your room and brainstorm this idea. Yellow team, go off to your room and then come back to the arena in the middle, as you can see just now, and have that discussion. So very good collaboration platform. It's always been one of the strongest ones in this category, and I highly recommend it. Meet in VR, very much similar idea here to Glue. They've been around for a long time as well, based in Copenhagen as far as I remember. It was just a very slightly different approach that they had, a slightly different tool, slightly different functionality. I haven't heard too much from them recently, but as you can see, good 3D environments, good functionality. I think unlike Glue, so Glue is one of the ones that still uses their own avatars. Meet in VR, I think we're using, this is the old Oculus or the Meta avatar system. They've probably already changed. This video is a little bit old, but as you can see, they're presenting to a group of people, kit bashing in 3D models like this to have a conversation. Glue and Meet in VR both have a 3D pen and a pen that works on a whiteboard, as you can see here. So there's not too much to differentiate these tools. For me, there was nothing that really stood out about Meet in VR. They were working very hard to have larger number of people in there. Glue, I think, just had the edge on the spatial audio, but as you can see, very similar capability in these applications. Yeah, they did have this kind of nice library of 3D parts which you could use for sort of team building or collaboration events, which I thought was pretty powerful. Arthur. So Arthur, again, this is a little bit of an older video. Let me just roll it back here. It's not the best demo video, but Arthur not spent too much money on marketing and this kind of thing. But basically, once we used Arthur, we found out it was actually a very powerful enterprise collaboration and workshopping tool. Probably one of the best for workshopping. And they had a bunch of capability in there specifically for workshopping, where you could use visual communication tools. There were some things in there that didn't exist on the other platform. I believe that they have significantly revamped, the graphics, some of the capabilities of it, and it's very niche. It's used by some pretty large companies in the German-speaking world. It's a German company, as far as I remember, and yeah, it had pretty. As you can see, PwC there. It had pretty powerful capability. Just couldn't find a good demo video, and it's probably something that's, if you're looking at this kind of meeting, workshopping area, it's definitely worth taking a look at Arthur. I had a very good impression of it, even though it's hard to find marketing material here. So Spatial is a very interesting application. Again, roughly the same ballpark. You can see here, sticky notes, whiteboarding, 3D models. It did start off as an augmented reality tool, and it had a very good technology for scanning your face and making these quite realistic looking avatars, or at least recognizable avatars. People would recognize who you are in it. They did a major pivot a few years ago, or a year or so ago, where they started focusing on NFTs and NFT galleries. As you can see here, this kind of gallery space that you see down here in the bottom left. But this application, it's always felt like one of the most slick applications. It had this kind of Apple-like user interface, which I personally didn't like. It was not good for a power user like me. But I must admit, they have some of the best functionality these days for this kind of thing, because they have very good avatars. They support Ready Player Me as well as their own avatar system now. They have a web-based collaboration feature, so you can enter one of these rooms purely in browser without installing anything. And some of the other ones do that now. Not too sure if Engage has got that now, but basically it's that ability to join a session on a 2D device without having to install anything is super important in the business context. And Spatial have got a really good version of that. And they've actually got very good capability for what we call the 2D user. So somebody not wearing a VR headset, somebody who's accessing this via tablet or some kind of computer. And that's really, really important in the business context, that people who don't have those headsets or don't want to wear one or can't wear one or whatever can still participate in these digital spaces. And Spatial's very good at that these days. So that's Spatial. Pretty easy to find, available on all platforms as well, like most of these. Synergy XR I added because it's a little bit more specialized. They're not so public. It's I think it's called Unity Studios or something. It was something to do with Unity. They were producing applications as a kind of contractor for Unity. I can't remember, but again, based in Denmark, they've effectively created more of a customizable platform. So it's not B2C like some of the other platforms here. It's definitely B2B. And as you can see here, this platform allows you to bring in content, 3D models. You can access via iPad, like some of the other ones. Arkio, I think it's got an iPad version that allows you to collaborate in the same space as VR users. You can see there they're doing things for HoloLens. I think that's for Grundfos, another big Danish company. No, it says Arla there. Very interesting. I have tried their demo. You can get it, I think, from the App Lab or maybe even from the official store now, but not so much B2C, but definitely worth looking at if you want to build something bespoke. So Synergy XR and Glue being the ones I know these days, and Engage, that will allow you to go and build something very bespoke, as you can see here with a digital twin or some kind of imported model, which makes it pretty interesting in itself. And perhaps not being so much focused on some of the standardized collaboration tools like computer sharing, screen sharing, whiteboarding, this kind of stuff. So you can see there it was Unity Studios. I think it's now kind of spun off into its own startup. Then the final category, I've just called this productivity. There's a big crossover between some of these things, especially Horizon Workrooms. So Noda is very much traditional mind mapping tool, but something that allows you to do that in the 3D space. I've used it. I think I'm still paying for the premium edition actually. What I like about it is that you can just do audio recording, and it's a pretty good voice to text converter. You have to pay for that. I think it's Azure probably in the background. And as you can see here, you can make spatial mind maps, which the way my mind works, I find is pretty interesting. The other thing you can do is that this works a bit like Miro, where it's got multi-user. You can send people a link. They can view it either as a standalone web page, which is very useful, or if they've got a headset. I'm not too sure if it's possible with PC today, but you can join this and then talk to the person and talk through a mind map. And that's very useful in business productivity and scenarios. I believe that Arthur has this kind of capability or similar capability built in. So again, that's worth mentioning that Arthur has this kind of workshopping tools built in. And it's just reminded me actually, there's another very significant tool, which I'm going to show you just now. So I'm just going to put it in here. Realm VR demo vid. Here we go. So not so easy to find a video. Oh no, that is wrong. So these guys, they're their own worst enemy. There's not a demo video that you can find, at least in English. I know these guys because I live in Germany, and we've had a demo from these guys. A very good platform. So this has come from a studio that was specializing in visualization. They use Unreal, I think, and there's still no videos on their webpage. So guys, if you're watching, know this guy here, Rolf. If you're watching, get a demo video somewhere. It probably was here actually. Realm, I can't show off your software, I'm afraid, because you just don't have a way to promote it. But Realm, I've got these beautiful environments, loads of workshopping tools, actually very good workshopping tools. I was really impressed by it. And Realm is one of these apps, every time I go in there, I spend like 1 to 2 hours in it. So it's a combination of the people who work for them and the team who put together pretty compelling workshops. Again, it's not a B2C kind of business. They do B2B. They typically will do bespoke setup of workshops. And they've got some pretty big customers. I can't remember if it's Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Bahn, these kind of level of customers where they've got significant engagement. So again, definitely worth looking at. I'm not too sure about the health of the company. It's strange that there's not been any updates, but Realm also definitely fits into this kind of category here. So going back to productivity, we had to look at Noda. Immersed, it's not something I've used for a while, but whenever people talking about individuals working in VR, Immersed always comes up. It's by far the most popular tool for this. As you can see, it allows you to bring in multiple screens from your desktop, laptop, your main computer that you use for work. And it's got very good tools. There are people who develop, as you can see in here, write code in that environment. Of course, the big advantage is that you can use it solo and have like multiple screens, more than you can have in your physical space. Or as you can see here, you can actually go into cafes like Public World, or you can just do multi-user and have other developers come in and look at your multiple screens. So imagine being able to have multiple screens coming off your single computing device at home, and to be able to share, well, use that for your own productivity, but also to use that to share with other people. Very powerful tool. I don't use it myself. I've got very little experience with it, but I hear very good things about Immersed. That's the one to go for if you want to share your screen. And then vSpatial is something I did have a brief look at, and I can't really remember the difference, but as far as I remember, it allowed you to screen share, it allowed you to do a few other things, but certainly Immersed getting either more media attention or more attention from users, and certainly getting more positive feedback in the circles that I work in. But as you can see there, it allows you to bring in your screens, allows you to collaborate with people, so very much having a crossover with Immersed as far as I can tell. And this is something which is very niche, I think, but there are people who are spending significant time in their VR headsets because they've got multiple screens. I do this from time to time, so because I use a lot of web apps, I'll have my Outlook up, I'll have Slack up, and I'll maybe have a YouTube video up, and I can have this dashboard in front of me, which I simply can't have, even though I've got 2 monitors set up here in my physical office. Having that in immersive VR is actually really nice sometimes. But that's what these kind of productivity apps are for. So that's my rundown of events. Probably too long for a YouTube video. 30 minutes there I saw, but it should be a pretty comprehensive guide for people wanting to get started and understand what kind of apps could you use in a business context with XR. That's all from me, and thanks very much for your attention. I look forward to your comments.